think I always wanted to write, but I didn't think it was possible. It was sort of something along the lines of being a nurse and a ballerina. So I ended up. It's true. It seemed just foolish, and so I ended up going to law school, kind of as a failure of imagination, because I didn't want to get a job. So I went to law school. Law school ended, so I had to leave, and wrote secretly. I was like a closet writer or something, and like really secretly. I never. It was the height of avocation, and nothing more, and nothing meant for anything but the drawer. And I did that for a long time, and then I sort of stopped doing even that. And then then I stopped drinking and using drugs somewhere around that same time, and tried to be an upstanding citizen for a while. So I had jobs and I had children, and but I was still I started closet writing again right after my first child was born. And I wrote a very, very bad novel. And then I wrote the first 250 pages of an even worse novel. And I wrote those 5 times. And then I started just writing what I wanted to write. And I gave up all the ideas that I had about how one was supposed to write. And luckily, at the same time, I started discovering people like William Gass and things like that. And so to me, there was this sort of fortunate moment where, and I used to say this, it was during my 30s, I felt like I was having small children and learning to write. And that's what I did for a period of time. And ended up spending about 8 years writing a very long novel that started with my deciding that I was going to write down for 80 pages whatever came into my head, with the idea that the brain will pattern things and something will come of it. And that was sort of my really first extended project that worked. But then there were little things that kept me going. Like I would write a small piece and send it out. I started sending things out, sent it out, and even if somebody picked it up, write it up. And so that was like the little helpful. And I eventually ended up getting an MFA, which was primarily I did because I wanted to meet other writers, and I had no idea how one did that exactly. And I'm trying to think, and that wasn't that long ago, actually. It was about 7 years ago that I got my MFA, and since then, it's just been, it seems exponential to me. My first book was published a year and a half ago, and it was a book that I wrote in between drafts of this big novel. And the big novel's coming out in the fall, along with a nonfiction book about the law work. And I don't know, that seems very chronological. I always loved language. It was sort of the only thing that actually made sense to me. That seemed, I know people have a sense of it being a slippery thing or an unstable thing, but actually I find it sort of a wealth of stability. And like a bunch of, what's the word for those? The ice, the clamps on when you're a mountain climber on your shoes. It's like these little hooks that you sort of dig into the ice as you're inching your way forward, and that's really the trajectory for me. I remember I spent 6 months, and all I would listen to was Shakespeare sonnets. Every time I live in Los Angeles as well, and every time I got in the car, I would listen to Shakespeare sonnets for 45 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, over and over.
That's a good idea.
That had to be hugely influential.
It was enormously influential because what I realized was it changed my relationship forever, I think, to words, because I started seeing words vertically instead of horizontally.
Yeah.
And then horizontally as well. It's like it's almost like those models of atoms when you're in junior high or something. All of a sudden you realize that the perspective that you're looking at this word is from here, but you could actually step around and look at it from here, or so everything became very multidimensional in terms of language.